The other big news was aluminum on the SMF starting with, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, it's been G10 carbon fiber. There's been some aluminum stuff done before for the medical community that needed a knife that could go in the autoclave. But so why don't you run down why the AL on this guy?
Everyone is under the impression when you deal with aluminum that it's an expense issue, that aluminum's just cheap to work with. Aluminum is a fairly inexpensive material to purchase and readily available. More so in both of those aspects than G10 or carbon fiber. Machine time's the same. So the money is really in the man hours that you've got involved, not so much in the material. Machine time's the same. It is a lot nicer to machine because it doesn't muck up your machines. Glass epoxy substrates are real hard on machinery. We also had some other aspects of doing this. There is a requirement in the system for the United States government to do an auto. So we are actively pursuing that and going to jump into that business as well.
Really? That's kind of a little cat right out of the bag, right?
That's going to happen. And then obviously all the state laws will apply, so everybody's got to say their disclaimer. But you know, the United States government does have a requirement, and we want to be part of that. We feel that we are a huge part of the tactical edge tool manufacturer for the government already. We have 11 national stock numbers that are in the system. So we'd like to add one more, maybe with a folder. We'll see how that turns out. By the time we have this discussion next year, you'll see it on the table.
That'd be nice for the guys to have an auto that is truly has the bulletproofness of a Strider, but in an auto format. You know, let's face it, a lot of the auto designs, without mentioning any names, have been a compromise in one way or another to have that auto functionality. You know,
I think a lot of the ones that are out there have to meet a price point, and that's not what we're interested in doing. We're going to make a product that will be an auto that if it doesn't meet the current requirements that we demand out of our product line, then we're not going to do it. So that's what we're going to shoot for. Aluminum, the tough thing about it, we found as we really entered this, it was actually harder to find proper hard coat, type 3 hard anodizing than it was to find good aluminum. 70 series aluminum is great to work with, type 7, and we decided, okay, that's really just a marketing thing for knives. We don't need to go that route. Plus, it is hard to work with and hard anodizing, matching colors. So we did stick with T6, and it's worked out great with us. We're gonna do a lot more with that. You guys are gonna see more and more designs, more and more millwork configurations of this, but keeping with the SMF and the SMG configuration.
And just real quick, this is obviously one of your customs, so you ground this, and this is out of CPM M4, right? So give maybe the bullet points, of the M4.
We're crazy material people. There's really three things to make an any edge tool, in my opinion, in many people's opinion: raw materials, exploitation of the raw materials, i.e. heat treat, and geometry. And those three things are truly science. They're not a matter of opinion. They're not open for suggestion. Ergonomics, opinion. Aesthetics, obviously opinion. But those three things are science. We can prove those things with math. So with raw material world, if you break it down to the terms that a lot of the knife making world really likes to use, hardness, toughness, and wear resistance, those terms are easily approachable from the layman standpoint. It's easy to read about that in Blade Magazine. It's easy to study about that a little bit on the internet. And if you really do look at those terms, you'll see that this material, for example, CPM M4 and M4 in general as a tool steel, has succeeded greatly out in the blade sports world. It won again this year.
And the cutting competition was an M4 knife.
That was another M4. So there's some guys like Warren Osborne who have been out on the forefront with the M4 world, really pushing that hard. High hardenability, great toughness. It's a good material, not a corrosion resistant material at all. But in that aspect, I always like to throw it out there that none of our grandfathers had a single stainless steel part in an M1 Garand that they carried. We still won the big wars.
Still lots of guys got dead.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So this is one of the materials. The 3V world, I think, is a phenomenal way to go. There's a new material that I'm super excited about that our neighbor here, Carpenter Materials, has come out with called PD1. The cat's out of the bag. You will see Strider knives using a whole lot of that. Obviously the S30 world, the S35 world, the 154 world that we chose to work with Bob, Huge fan of 154, CPM grade 154. So some of the older materials, which are not that old, are still strong and in service with us. We just like to keep pushing that envelope of technology and looking at if there is a niche, if we're looking for something to create greater toughness because an end user needs that, we want to fill it. We want to be the company that fills that technical need.
And I think it's important to point out that while it's not a true stainless, it's still an alloy steel. It's not a high carbon steel, right? And everything is that balancing act, so you're giving up some of that corrosion resistance. I'm sure you saw the video where we were beating on that 3V knife, and M4 is kind of the kissing cousin to 3V, right?
It is.
Yeah. So
you take these materials, any of the materials that are built with really requirement for great toughness, and as far as it being high carbon, actually they are high carbon. 3V is actually the lower end of that at only 0.9. M4 is a very high carbon material, but all that means is if you allocate other elements, specific elements to that'll bond with that carbon to create the carbides with, is it going to be a high percentage of carbide? You can leave that carbon in solution, or you can take it out and form carbides with it, and that's what creates the great wear resistance in these materials, because the carbide's really set up to do that.
And as far as an end user standpoint, I'm a guy in a crappy part of the world, or even a guy in the woods using this as a tool. As far as user level maintenance, it's not the end of the world, right? Quick wipe down, just take care of your tools.
Any of these ferrous metals, if it's a ferrous metal, 6,500 years we've been in the Iron Age, okay, basically. Any ferrous metal that'll achieve 60 Rockwell will rust. Some will rust faster than others. But all the ferrous metals that'll achieve 60 Rockwell, you can argue with me that, okay, but there's some materials made from some other manufacturers now that claim they achieve 60 Rockwell on the surface. That'll give you that measurement and not rust. That's partially true. At the surface they will. They won't achieve true through hardness to 60 Rockwell. There's none that exists. So, the stainless world, like 154, like S30V, like 35VN, like all these materials, they are corrosion resistant at a greater level than a material like M4. But it's still a simple matter, and it is end user responsibility to take care of all your tactical equipment.
Listen, I know you get out of here. I appreciate the time. Appreciate you giving people a straight dope. So
the last thing, I think that the people who showed up, we're at Blade Show 2011 right now, and I think the show was exemplary. All our friends have been here that I've got to see and say hi to. But the real hat's off. I know that the gate was phenomenal this year, and everybody should thank that crew at Blade Show for putting on another hell of a show, even in a rough economy. Blade Show guys, Shackelford and the crew, hats off, great job.
So thanks again, appreciate it.
You down.